I'd say we do the outro first and do the whole episode in reverse.
Okay. Until then, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we'll see you next time.
Hell yeah. Have a good night, everybody. Good life.
I took a lease out on your heart. I took a lease out on your heart. Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun?
Welcome back, everybody. We are Rough Draft Research. You are the audience, and together we are on a quest for Dynasty Domination. How's it going over there, Daniel?
My friend, Dynasty domination is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Can't say I'm winning every league, but pretty good. Doing all right. Having a good year. It's all rounding out. But how are you doing?
Doing well, man. Did miss the playoffs and for the belt, and the D League, so those are both
Oh,
disappointing. But locked in the Jersey League, and as long as I can beat you
hey
this
yo.
week, I'll be in and roasted. So I'll take two. I made the playoffs in every single one of my redrafts. So that's kind of cool, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're doing it. We're doing the thing.
Yeah, man. Um I'm gonna try to drop that one. I can't believe I'm in second place in Fresh Studs and the D League. So I have first round buys, which is just a
Ooh,
weird thing in
fancy.
fantasy to have the buy. I haven't got used to I'm not always a top dog in the world, but
Yeah.
I'm barking this year.
I fairly used to the buy. I used to get the buy every now and then and for the belt, and then just would drop my first game after. So that was always fun.
Just a
But
shitty draft pick and
yeah,
nothing to
yeah,
show for it. Yeah.
yep. It's like cool. I'm glad I got a week off for no reason. But speaking of playoffs, that is what we are going to be talking about today, and we're going to do some fantasy playoff schedules, some best schedules, some worst schedules for you today. So we have two different formats. Mine's more of just informative, some guys I like, some guys I don't like. But I think you have a game ready for us,
I
yeah?
have a game. I have a game. I have a game.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and so I don't know. There's a lot of different thoughts that go in to the playoff schedule and the start sit and the psychology behind it all. And I'm getting hung up, man. I'm getting hung up. I had a tough time last week with some start sit decisions in a game where I needed to win the game to become the first place team. And I ended up winning 7 game win streak, most points scored in the league by 400 points, but I had to win 7 games in a row to get into first.
Damn.
But I was looking at my roster and I sat Chuba, I sat
Oof.
Darnell Mooney,
Oof.
like these guys that had great weeks, and I started, Calvin Ridley and Bucky Irving and Keenan Allen, like, and I'm thinking about it, and I think I'm going like name value
Mm-hmm.
over the opportunity, and it's put me in a bad place. So this week I'm letting it all go. I'm doing the back end research. I'm looking at the matchups more than just like the name and the recent past. So I got to dig at myself out of this. I do this. I psych myself out every playoffs, and I make a mistake that costs me whatever. Doesn't matter.
Easy to do.
So this week we're gonna do a little game. I think we're all familiar with the phrase "keep trade cut."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to present you with 3 players of the same position with a little bit of information, and I want you to, see if you can take the opportunity and ignore the name, or if you're sticking with the name on them.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with the quarterbacks. Our 3 quarterbacks are Jared Goff,
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes
Mm.
and Will Levis.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah, I know. So I'll give you a little information before you make your decision, and then we can talk about it a little bit. But um, right now, Jared Goff is the quarterback nine on the season. Last week, he was quarterback six, and he's got a schedule of the Bills, the Bears, and the 49ers. And so the Bills and the Bears are both like top three in the least amount of points they're allowing to the quarterback position. And then the Niners are 12th least. So it's all kind of the worst half of the league for a quarterback to go up against. So even though he's, kind of hot right now, got a bit of a rough road. And then you've got Mahomes here, who is the quarterback 11 on the year. He was quarterback 17 last week. And he has the Browns, who are 15th least, the Texans, who are 18th, and then the Steelers, who are number one in allowing the least amount of points.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's kind of a middle of the pack, but he's got the Niz, Patrick Mahomes. And then lastly, you have Will Levis, who
Mm.
is the quarterback 30 on the year.
Hmm.
He was the quarterback 26 last week, and his schedule is the Bengals,
Mm.
who are 30th, the Jags 31st, and the Colts 21st. So he's got some really generous matchups.
Hmm.
And he has had a few pop little weeks here down the stretch. He's kind of heating up a little bit. Consistency is a little bit there. So I don't know, man. I want you to tell me who you keeping, who you trading, and who you cutting on this one.
This is tough. I mean, the matchups for Levis are juicy, but I don't know. For a guy that's season high is 18 points, um, I just don't trust him really. Not enough to start him over those two. So what I would probably do is keep Jared Goff because I believe in the Lions and I believe in their offense and think that he will overcome that schedule. I mean, we just watched what Matthew Stafford did to the Bills
Sure.
this past week, and I believe they're playing in Detroit. Yeah.
It is in Detroit. It's in Buff. Yeah, it's in Detroit. Yep.
Yeah, so they'll be inside, so weather won't be a factor there. I just don't really see the Lions offense slowing down enough to where I wouldn't trust them. I'd probably trade Mahomes
Okay.
because of the name value there.
Sure.
And just he hasn't been amazing this year. I mean, he's been Patrick Mahomes, but not to the level that we've usually seen him. And just the Chiefs seem to be slugging out these games and not really going for it. And then I would still probably cut Levis just because like I didn't take a quarterback um uh in this exercise that we're doing.
Okay.
But Will Levis was one of the guys I toyed with. And yeah, his matchups are juicy, but just looking at his stats and his performance, I've just not really been hyper into him. I mean, he has looked better from a Titans perspective, but like you're talking about these weeks where he's looked good and been a little more consistent, it's 18, 15, 14, 15, and then 6 last week against a team that was a good matchup on
Yeah.
paper.
Yeah.
So I don't trust him really.
Okay. I would expect you to say all that. And yeah, my only thing is I think Mahomes probably, the way the Browns have been kind of in these high flying shootouts, and then Texans have the ability to be in that situation too.
Hmm.
And then you just have to hope they score enough points to make you look okay versus the Steelers. But if we're doing like a whole playoff run, um, give me a starting quarterback. I'll give him another chance on the Mahomes thing, but it feels like the wrong thing to do. But were you saying you are no
I
QBs in
don't
this?
have any QBs.
Oh my
I'm a
goodness.
hater.
You've opened the door for me to just keep talking then.
Yeah, go for it.
Ooh, doors open. Okay, I'll go to tight ends.
Okay.
Just because it's fun. I went big dogs on this conversation.
Okay.
Try to keep it a difficult decision. I went with David Njoku,
Okay.
Brock Bowers, and
Mm,
George Kittle.
mm,
So it's going to be tough. But Njoku is right now on the season. He's the tight end eight, and he was number two last week. He's playing the Chiefs, who are 31, so second most allowed. The Bengals, who are 30, third most allowed. And then the Dolphins, who are 19th in the least. So they're in the bottom half as far as giving up more than the rest of the league.
hmm
So pretty good matchups for a guy who's playing pretty damn well right now. But then you've got Brock Bowers, who is number one on the season. Last week he was tight end 16. Michael Mayer's come to life a little bit. But he's got the Falcons, who are right in the middle of the pack at 16. And then you've got the Jaguars, is a pretty juicy matchup. They're 26th least points to the tight end. And then the Saints, who are 11th least. So they're kind of a top third as far as limiting. So it's not as appealing as the David Njoku.
hmm
Um, but then you've got Kittle. So Kittle's number two on the year, number one last week. He plays the Rams, who are 22nd least, the Dolphins, 19th least, and then the Lions, who are number one, absolutely shutting down the tight end position. So a little juicy, but then a real slammer at the end. So I don't know, based off of schedule, um, keep trade cut these guys.
All right, I'm gonna do. Can we change it to start sit cut? Because
Yeah,
the
that sounds
idea of
great.
I feel like I'm gonna sit Brock Bowers, and the idea of trading him is insane to me. So
Okay,
I don't want to
yeah,
do that.
I
So
like it.
I can't even say that in a hypothetical situation at this point. But
Hmm.
my logic here is, I mean, David Njoku, is playing phenomenally well, and Kansas City and Cincinnati are both allowing an average of 16 points per game to tight ends. Obviously, that's not necessarily just to one tight end, but in an offense that doesn't really use multiple tight ends all that often, I wouldn't think.
No,
Njoku could just really, really go off. And then sitting Brock Bowers is kind of insane, maybe. Just how the level of what he's been doing, and maybe this is a little bit of reading into the schedule a bit too much. But having him there instead of a George Kittle, um, where Kittle, I mean, Kittle should be fine the first 2 weeks, but then if you make it to Championship Sunday and he's going up against the Lions, who are around averaging around 9 points to tight ends, like total. So that's all any tight ends the other team has, is just not something you want to rely on. And so, yeah, I feel like that is the order I would go. Maybe I'm galaxy braining Njoku into the starting role a little bit, but
no,
those
dude.
matchups are juicy.
Jokic is a monster, dude. And what he's doing in the red zone this year, even though a lot of those balls aren't necessarily catchable, he's a reliable target right there. So
hmm
yeah, and he's badass. He's just a next level guy. But
Yeah, he was on my list of good matchups to take
oh,
advantage of
nice.
in the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, like you said, KC, Cincinnati, and Miami. Miami being the lowest end of that, but they're still averaging around 13 points to tight ends a week. So that's still pretty decent. And I think with the way Jameis just tries to ball out every week too, and I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very well,
No.
either. So I see them airing it out, and Njoku being the main, maybe not main with the way Jerry Judy's playing right now, but one of the big recipients of it.
Heck yeah. I'm with you, man. I agree fully on this one. Do you got any tight end love in the
Yeah,
bucket?
so another guy that I think is having some good matchups here. We got Pat Freiermuth. I know he hasn't
Oh,
been great all year, and it's a little bit of a risky play. And week one, not so great going up against the seventh ranked defense against tight ends in Philly. But then he has Baltimore, who's allowing an average of 13 and a half, and then Kansas City in championship weeks. So we know how they're kind of allowing tight ends to do whatever they want right now. So that's pretty spicy to me. I also have two bad matchup guys
Okay.
that I want to cover real quick. Are we going to move on to a different position after this, or should I wait on the bad matchups, do you think?
We'll go to a different position. So bad matchups for
Okay.
tight ends. Sounds great.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna start with one who has been popping as of late. Jonnu Smith looks great for Miami.
Ah,
And it might be risky to stop to bench him right now. But Houston's allowing the fourth least points to tight ends at around 9.5 points per game. San Francisco, who he plays next week, is third at 8, right, just under 9. And then he does have a good fantasy championship match, so you might want to slide him in there when he goes against Cleveland,
yeah.
at 13.5 points there. But just getting through those first 2 weeks might be tough for you with Jono. And then Hunter Henry, who has looked at all right at times with Drake May, it has an absolute dangerous schedule here. Arizona with the sixth least points, Buffalo with the ninth, and then the Chargers with the 10th least. And so our numbers might be a little different. I know we use two websites just for all those listening. I got those numbers from Sleeper, and then any of the average numbers I got from NFLFantasyResearch.com or however it is. So just keep that in mind. Just trying to broad strokes see how the world is feeling about these places. But yeah, that Hunter Henry schedule, all three of those teams are in the top 10 in terms of not allowing the tight ends to get the ball. So I think he could have a lot of trouble in the playoffs.
Yeah. And you're kind of in a bad way if you're going for Hunter Henry at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
But man, I hadn't even thought about him. He didn't blip on the radar, but that's a good thing. I feel that's a good thing. I'm going with a good thing on that one. But all right, I'm gonna do wide receivers, huh?
Oh,
Finish strong with the running backs.
I'm down. Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right, this one I'm not giving you the names, okay?
Okay.
Oh yeah. It's the next level. So sit, start, cut. We'll call it wide receivers. Okay, the first wide receiver is the wide receiver 11 on the season,
Okay.
and he just had the wide receiver 25
Hmm.
week. He has the Ravens, who are 30th least, Falcons, 31st least, and the Colts, who are 16th. So, a couple of nice matchups, and then one in the middle there. All right. The no name number two is the wide receiver 3 on the year,
Hmm.
just coming off of the wide receiver 38 game. They have the Bills, who are 11th least, the Bears, who are second least, pretty tough, and then the 49ers, who are eighth. Okay. And then we have the wide receiver 16, who is coming off of the wide receiver 15 week, and he's got the 14th ranked Raiders in the least, Giants at the seventh least, and the Commanders at the 19th least.
Oof.
So again, you've got basically, yeah, number one is the 11th rank, and he's got a soft schedule, was 25th in the last week. You got
Uh-huh.
number three, who's got a tough schedule, did not have a great outing in the last week. And then you've got number 16, who did pretty well last week and has kind of a middle of the road schedule coming at you. So I'm going to make you pick, and then I'll tell you the names.
Well, so interestingly enough, I believe that I have two of these guys on my list.
No way.
Because looking at who you named, the Baltimore, Atlanta, Indy, and then
Mhm.
the last guy you named, the Raiders, Giants, and Commanders.
Mhm.
I have a guy. I have two guys that have both those schedules, so I think I know who we're talking about. I don't know who is the wide receiver 3 right now.
Okay.
Um, But I think, hmm. So so here's the thing. I'm gonna let you do the big reveal.
Yes.
I'm gonna try to not spoil these as much as possible here, but
Okay.
I think I would start the wide receiver three.
Okay.
He's up there for a reason.
Yeah.
Maybe he had a bad week last week, but consistently throughout the year, puts him in the top three. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that maybe it was just a down week and that he can overcome these matchups.
Okay.
I'm going to sit the guy with the juicy matchups of Baltimore, Atlanta, and Indy simply
Oh,
because I don't trust their replacement quarterback right now.
sure. Good call.
Um, and don't know that even with those juicy matchups, if they're going to be able to take advantage of that. And then I guess I will then cut the guy with the kind of medium matchups there, the wide receiver 16, because weirdly enough, I also don't trust their quarterback, and their matchups are harder.
Yeah.
And I believe a couple of those are on the road as well, which means they won't be playing in the controlled environment of the dome they usually play in, which could hurt their aging quarterback
Oh
who
man, you got me.
cannot move around very much at this
You're reading
point.
me like a book over there. So yes, you are starting Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Hmm.
You are sitting Malik Neighbors,
Yep.
and you are cutting Darnell Mooney.
Oh, Drake London.
Yeah, Drake London.
So same. Okay, so it wasn't the same person, but same team.
Pretty close, right?
Yeah. I thought he was better than wide receiver 16, so that makes sense. But
Well, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a tough one. You're right, because Neighbors has the matchups and he's done pretty well, but yeah, it's a crapshoot. It would have
mhm.
been more fun if I should have outfoxed you a little harder than that. Um, but yeah, I'm with you, man. Just because it's a soft schedule, like a lot of these guys that are top guys are overcoming tough matchups anyways. So
Hmm.
looking for that. The only thing that scares me about St. Brown is you never know when they're going to turn on a run game,
Yeah.
a rushing game, and then kind of ice him out, similar to what happened last week where he ended up at 38 just because he never hit the end zone and I think it was under 60 yards. It just
Hmm.
wasn't necessary for him to be that guy last week. So
Yeah. I could see them in a shootout with the Bills, though. I mean, we just saw what the Rams were able to do. But you can't really stop Josh Allen either. So that to me would lend on maybe taking away the running game a little bit more, although Buffalo has been not great against the run, so they might want to take advantage of that matchup there. So that could be interesting. He could bang in a big spot, St. Brown that is. But yeah, I mean, Neighbors seems like the locked and loaded guy to do with the matchups that he has. I mean, just for instance, Baltimore's allowing 39.5 points to wide receivers a game. Atlanta's allowing almost 40, and Indy is allowing 32. So even his bad matchup is fairly good, but it's just that I don't trust DeVito or Drew Lock or whoever the hell is going to be throwing them the ball at that moment. And then yeah, just the Falcons experience has been a little left us all a little bit wanting lately, I think.
I can't believe that first half, second half of that last week.
Yeah,
Like
pretty
what
bananas.
the what happened in the locker room at halftime? But whatever. Well, you got any more wide receivers on
Yeah,
yours?
yeah, I do. So we hit a few of them. I'm gonna. So my first good matchup one is kind of a pick your poison type deal because it's basically the Bears. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, whoever you
Yeah.
have, I think is going to be worth starting. Although, I mean, we've seen the inconsistency and ineffectiveness of the Bears offense, so that's a little scary. I think I would lean, obviously, DJ Moore one, and I actually think I'd
Yeah.
put Rome Odunze two. He's starting to heat up. I mean, maybe it's just recency bias with the two touchdown game, but I think they're really trying to hit that hard. And in a lost season, I don't want to put this on Keenan Allen. I have no idea. I haven't been watching the Bears games, but I
I think he had like
skeptical.
15 targets last week.
Okay, so he had 15 targets. So I mean, that's fair. I don't know. That so it's tough. All those guys though are going to be going up against Minnesota, who are the 32nd ranked defense in terms of points allowed to wide receivers, the Detroit Lions, who are 28th, and then the Seattle Seahawks, who are 18th. So those some really juicy matchups. I mean, Minnesota is allowing over 40 points to wide receivers each week. Detroit is at 37, and then Seattle at 32, basically. So there are some points to be had if you can attack them. And so all three of those guys have decent shouts. Terry McLaurin would be my next guy. New Orleans is the 26th ranked
Oh,
defense against wide receivers. And then he does have a tough matchup in week two of the playoffs with Philly, who's allowing only the fifth most. But then finishes out strong with Atlanta, who's the 31st. Uh, so those are pretty good. Both New Orleans and Atlanta are allowing over 35 points a game to wide receivers, where Philly is actually allowing less than 30. So you think about that in three wide receiver sets, that's less than 10 points a receiver. So you don't want that. Um, and then I also want to shout out a guy who I think can really help um, in deeper leagues and who has helped all year, and that's Jacoby Myers.
okay.
He has been pretty consistent for the Raiders. I mean, he's averaging about 14.5-ish points per game, something like that, 14.2. But he's going up against Atlanta, who's the 31st ranked, Jacksonville, who's 29th, and
Oof.
then finishes out with New Orleans, who are 26th. So there is, and a couple of those matchups are good against tight ends. So they might be able to take Brock Bowers away a little bit more. Maybe not. Maybe Brock Bowers is a unicorn that can't be stopped. But Jacoby
Well,
Myers could have some big weeks.
I got you.
I mean, his quarterback's a little scary, obviously.
Who?
But
Yeah, I didn't even know. Are we back to O'Connell again,
I
or
didn't he
no?
get hurt or is it
Ritter?
Ritter? I don't know.
I
We
think it's
I
Ritter.
have to
Jesus,
check.
I don't even know, man. I don't know. I in the league I got first place when I redraft House of Buckets, the old time, good times.
hmm
I've got both Keenan Allen and DJ Moore,
Oh.
and I'm just like I'm really struggling because it's like Calvin Ridley or Mooney or Bucky Irving or Chuba. It's like this everybody's startable, but so it
hmm
makes it even tougher. But so I'm glad you brought up the Chicago three pack because they really are like getting real feisty right now,
Yeah.
and it feels like I don't know. Keenan has 83 targets on the year. Odunze has 81, and then DJ Moore has 104. But like Keenan's doing more with his. It
hmm
feels like I don't know, man. I'm just bench all Chicago players and let it be. I guess is going to be my approach. But I don't
uh
know.
yeah, I mean there's an argument to be made where you just throw both Keenan and DJ Moore in though too and hope the matchups play
I've
out.
done that. Like I feel
Yeah.
like, especially like against Minnesota, like whatever happens, man.
You never
But
know.
it's gonna be fun. But
Yeah,
either way,
no.
as long as
Should
I get
be.
the W.
hmm Um Looking at guys with bad matchups, already mentioned Drake London. I know you were talking about Darnell Mooney in yours, but he has the same matchups there. Um, I threw in Cooper Cup, and I think it's because Puka has almost proven to be like he's the new guy and maybe a little matchup proof, especially if he's playing the way he played the other night against the Bills. But
Silly.
the Rams are going up against San Fran, who are the least eighth ranked defense against wide receivers, only allowing just over barely over 30, 30.06. The Jets, who are second, allowing about 28, and then Arizona, who's 17th at 32, and some change. So that's not great, and I don't know if that's going to limit Cooper Cup or Puka or both or just one of them. But he's in the danger zone for me. But he has been a guy who's been consistent. I feel like people are a little lower on him than they should be right now. He's getting about 20 points per game still. He doesn't maybe look the way he used to, but it's worth noting that his matchups are not amazing. Also, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith have some tough matchups coming up. They got Pittsburgh this week, sixth um, against wide receivers at just under 30. And then they got Washington, who is 19th. They do finish strong against Dallas, who is 23rd. But we have already seen that it's kind of the Saquon Barkley show right now. And the passing offense isn't working great, even when they're winning games. I mean, they almost blew a game to the Panthers last week. If
My
Xavier
God.
Legette could have caught that ball, they would have maybe lost that game, and it was in large part due to their inability to pass. So that is sketchy to me, especially going into week one of the playoffs. And you got Pittsburgh. That's a tough sledding. And then Brian Thomas Jr. Not only does he
Yo.
have to deal with backup quarterback with Trevor Lawrence being on IR for the year, he's also going up against the Jets, who are second ranked, Raiders, who are 14th at just under 32 points per game, and then the Titans, who are quietly fourth against the wide receivers, just under 29. So that is some tough sledding and a backup quarterback to do it all with.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that right now. I'm with you. Mac Jones, dude. Who knew? Who knew? Man, there's some tough that AJ Brown breaks my heart.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not gonna talk about all my leagues, but I already have. So I mean I'm doing a guillotine league right now.
hmm
We gotta definitely set some of this up for next year, but
I'm down.
where it's only four teams left and we all have one loss, so it's like sudden death. Lose one team
Damn.
a week until the end of the season, and then like the rosters of the people that lose go on the waivers, and so
hmm
you just build your team stronger. And I spent all my fab already, so I need AJ Brown to get in there, man. So it cracks me up, but man,
All
fantasy
right.
football. Here we go.
You want to do some running backs?
It's the big marquee, dude. The running backs, baby.
Running, running,
Um,
running.
yeah, I got two sets. So I got a high
Okay.
names and low names. I'll
Okay.
go with my low names first. And
Okay.
this is no offense to these guys. I mean, the other names are just higher names. So um, you got Chuba.
hmm
So you got Chuba as number 12 on the season. Last week he was eighth. Surprise, surprise. After he had kind of a week before that. It doesn't matter. He's got the Cowboys 28th at least. He's got the Cardinals 26th at least, and then he's got the Bucks. So they're at 17th, and it's pretty good. Pretty good schedule right there. Real nice, actually. If only you could play the Panthers, you know what I mean? But
hmm
that all of that aside, you can't play your own team, not yet. Anyway, so number two on the list is James Conner. He's 14th on the season,
hmm
seventh last week. He's got the Patriots, which are 16th. Then he's got the Panthers, which are, dead last, giving up the most points. And he's got the Rams, who are 18th. So it's like two in the middle, one very delicious matchup. And then I put Brian Robinson Jr.
Okay.
out there, and some of these guys had bye weeks recently. So their most recent week is what I have them for that. But so he's 29th on the year. Most recent week he was the RB 12. He's got the Saints, who are 25th least, so it's a good matchup. And then the Eagles, who are fifth least, and the Falcons eighth least, against the running backs. So yeah, Chuba, James Conner, Brian Robinson Jr.
That's tough. I actually have Chuba and James Conner on my good matchups list
Mm.
as well. So we're gonna kind of uh, simpatico there. I think right off rip, I'm gonna cut Brian Robinson. I mean, with the dual threat of Jaden Daniels taken away from him. I mean, obviously Kyler Murray's kind of in that same vein with James Conner, but we've seen James Conner do it, and we've seen Brian Robinson do it as well. But going up against Philly, I think would be really tough, and relying on him in that second playoff matchup might scare me away. So I'm going to cut him. And then getting into James Conner and Chuba, I think, and I'm a big Chuba stan. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows who's been listening to our pod since what 3 years ago now when Chuba was coming out of the draft that I was kind of pounding the table for him. So this Chuba Sans, if you want to call it, has been an incredible watch for me. I've been very excited. So I think I'm going to ride with him. I'm going to start him going up against Dallas this week. Should be able to really, really go off there. Arizona is a good week, and then Tampa, as tough as it might be to get the worst of your three in the championship. Excuse me. I don't think it'll affect him that much. He's been so consistent outside of a few down weeks. I mean, if you look here, I'll pull up his kind of weekly schedule here. I mean, yeah, he had the 2 point week last week, which was a dud,
Yeah,
obviously.
that
The
was rough.
fumble really hurt him, for what it's worth, that was against Tampa Bay, so that
Yep.
could be scary coming championship weekend. But then he had 20 last week, 15 the week before, 24 the week before, 21, and then 9 against Denver, but 11, 14, 17, 22, 27, 11. Like he's been really consistent outside of about 3 games. And so I'm going to rely on that consistency. Whereas James Conner, I mean, also has been pretty good, but the
Yeah,
Chargers or the Cardinals look a little bit lost to me.
for
Although, I
sure.
mean, yeah, it's tough. He's got really consistent numbers as well.
Yeah.
Less down weeks. He always seems to stumble into that end zone. Actually, he only has what, 4 or 5 touchdowns this year? Damn, he's
Yeah,
doing
it's
this
only
all.
five, one receiving.
I don't know. It's tough. It's in Arizona at Carolina. I mean, that Carolina matchup could be really
Carolina, yeah.
juicy for him.
Yeah.
Oh man,
It's tough. And they're still, I think they're still in the playoff bubble, so
they
they
are
might
on
be
the playoff
pushing.
bubble. I'm gonna stick to my guns and say start Chuba, sit James Conner, and have him as the backup there. I just I could this could end up biting me. I think they both have great matchups. That's why they're both on my list. So I
Right.
think you'll be happy with either of these guys, and you should take advantage of them if you have them.
Hmm.
But fuck it, I'm gonna stick to my Chuba guns, and we're gonna go with it.
Yeah, I feel like yeah, the Jonathan Brooks injury, which what the fuck,
Yeah,
Heartbreak
such a
City,
this
man.
poor kid, man.
But that kind of gave Chuba the, you know, you switch from lead to ink on
Hmm.
that, writing him down. So I'm in it. I'm in it. Low names. We're going to high names, man.
Okay.
Okay, high names. Joe Mixon.
Mm.
Got Joe Mixon on the season. He's number 10. Because he missed time, he's I think he's number one when it's per game. But anyway, last week he was the running back 4. And he's got the Dolphins, their 20th least, the Chiefs number 1 in least amount, and then the Rams 18. So he's got kind of a tougher schedule. And then I'm going with James Cook. James Cook. No S. He's 13th on the season. Last week was real rough for him. 37th, running back 37 on the week. Obviously, Josh Allen scored 3 rushing touchdowns, so I guess that kind of took his job away a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's got the Lions, who are second, number 2 in least amount. Then the Patriots at 16th, and the Jets are 10th. So it's kind of a tougher schedule, especially compared to the rest of these guys. But then Derrick Henry, number 2 on the season, 18th last week. He's got the Giants, who are 27th against the rushing. Then the Steelers, who are 10th, and then the Texans, who are third. So it's like a good matchup, a middle matchup, and then a really tough matchup. So I don't know. This one I thought was kind of weird, but I'm going for it. What do you got on my keep trade cut? Joe Mixon, James Conner, and Derrick Henry.
This is really tough. All three of these guys have been awesome. Obviously, Mixon was in my bad matchups section here.
Hmm.
With I mean, having to play Kansas City and Baltimore is just tough. Uh, and like you look at Derrick Henry when he played against Pittsburgh, he got only 10.5 points, and he needed a touchdown to do it. So they kind of bottled him up pretty good. But I would just say, I mean, that is at home as well against Pittsburgh, whereas the first game obviously was on the road. I would probably go start Derrick Henry, sit Joe Mixon. Man, that's tough though. And cut James Cook. I mean, it just seems like I
Ooh,
obviously we watched um Josh Allen vulture 3 touchdowns away. The only one that's not in threat of getting touchdowns vultured is Joe Mixon, I guess. CJ Stroud's
right.
not really a runner. But I just think the matchups are pretty tough for Mixon. Um, although he's been great against basically everybody. I mean, he put
Yeah,
up 16 in the Jets. Really the only bad games he's had are against Chicago and Tennessee. Everyone else has been pretty good. Man.
yeah. Derrick Henry, though, it's like the last 5 games have been under 15
Yeah.
points, and I mean, these are the high name guys.
hmm
It's kind
I
of a
think
rough draw.
I think it's between Mixon and Henry, obviously. Maybe you do just ride with the hot points per game hand in Mixon. Let me see if you're right about the average. So he's second in points per game behind
Okay.
Barkley.
Oh, Barkley. Yeah,
But
sure.
he's averaging about 21, but Derrick Henry
Whew.
is averaging 19 and a half.
Okay.
So he's not that far behind, but this is a full 2 points. Um, hmm.
Recency.
Recency, yeah, he has started to slow down a little bit. Oh man.
It's tough. I know.
I guess I go Mixon actually. I'll go start Joe Mixon, sit Derrick Henry, cut James Cook.
Oh, that's tough, man. I try to make them hard down the stretch here.
That was tough.
I don't know. I'm with you though. Definitely James Cook, been rough to trust him anyway.
hmm
But yeah, Mixon's the only guy that doesn't have a quarterback who's going to take, the playoff run in their own hands. I
Yeah.
think that gives him a pretty wild bump.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ooh, that was a tough one. Okay. So like I said, in my good matchups, I had Chuba and James Conner.
Okay.
So I have four more guys that have good matchups. Two of them I'm going to cover pretty quickly because I don't think you're on the roster bubble with either of these guys in terms of starting them. Because
Uh-huh.
Brees Hall has an incredible playoff schedule going up against Jacksonville, who's 31st, the Rams, who are 21st, and Buffalo, who's 30th. All averaging over, well, Jacksonville and Buffalo are both averaging over 27 points apiece to running backs. And then the Rams are at 23 and some change. So that's incredible. Bijan also looking fairly tasty outside of the championship weekend where he's got the Commanders who are 12th. But he goes in with the Raiders and Giants back to back. Giants 26th, Raiders at 23, or sorry, at 19th, allowing about almost 23 and a half points. And then Jonathan Taylor is an interesting name. Richardson
Really?
coming back has been hurting him sometimes, but he's had some good weeks as well. He's got a really tough matchup week one for the playoffs in Jonathan Taylor. They're 14th, allowing just above 22 points per game, and then Tennessee as well is 17th, just under 22 and a half. But he does finish out with the Giants at 26 who are 26, allowing just under 25 points per game to running backs. So that could be a spicy championship week matchup if he can get you through the end there through the first 2 weeks. So he's a little bit on the fence, but I think that final matchup and the other two being kind of middle of the road are pretty tasty. And then one more name for good has a horrendous matchup going into championship weekend with the Chargers, who are seventh. allowing under 20 points, just above 18 and a half points to running backs. But he comes out with Arizona at 24. They're 24th, allowing just over 24 and a half. And then Buffalo, who we talked about earlier. And that's Ramondre Stevenson.
Ooh, boy.
Um, he's a spicier play. He hasn't been great this year. He hasn't been terrible. Some weeks good, some weeks horrendous. But he could help you out in a big spot if you're looking for help in the first 2 weeks. But I would not touch him with a 10-foot pole going into championship weekend. And then some bad matchups. I already mentioned Mixon. He's a little maybe matchup proof at this point. But Isaiah Pacheco, coming off an injury, which isn't great, splitting time with Kareem Hunt a little bit, but he's going up against Cleveland, who's sixth against running backs, just over 19 and a half points. Uh, Houston, who's fourth, allowing just under 18. And then Pittsburgh, who is 11th, who Chubb did, or sorry, not Chubb. I don't see Pacheco really being able to break out coming off that injury and going up against three teams that are almost in the top 10. I mean, only one of them's outside the top 10, so that's pretty scary. The reason I mentioned Chubb is because he's next on the bad matchups. Hasn't looked great this year. Hopefully, he can come back next year and look a little closer to himself. But going up against Kansas City, who's the number one defense against running backs, Cincinnati, who's 17th, and then he does finish a little stronger with Miami, but still not a great schedule for a guy that's not looked incredible so far. Uh, the worst one, though, by far, is Najee Harris,
Yeah,
and throw in Jalen Warren if you like. Going up against Philly, who's
dude.
fifth, only allowing just above 18 points to the running back room. Baltimore, who's ninth, allowing just over 20 to the running back room, and then finishing championship weekend with Kansas City, who's allowing just under 15 points to the running back room in total. So that is a terrifying schedule to me, and one that I just I wouldn't trust him at all if you didn't have to.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I had him on here. I wanted to squeeze in a keep trade cut of like nightmare
Oh,
playoff,
gotcha.
and it's like there was nobody that compared to him. That's
No,
like it's so bad.
it's tough.
So we'll see. And I mean, I think Pittsburgh's locked in to the playoffs regardless of how those last three games go. But damn, you could not.
Couldn't
I mean,
ask
I
for a
guess they got
worse.
a fourth game in there that
Hmm.
doesn't count for fantasies, so it doesn't really count for reality either. But
No.
I didn't pick up that Ramondre, dude. That's a good little nugget. I'm gonna have to revisit that. I've got him a lot of places. I get over a little bit over the top on that stuff, but I don't know, man. That was I've been having a good time with the
Yeah.
conversation. You got anything else crazy to discuss?
Oh no, that was all my players. So I think we will be kind of moving on unless you have something else.
All I've got to say is we've got some diehard listeners. I want to do some regular season honors
Okay.
for the guys that are close to our hearts. You know, Danny, I'm only in two leagues with, but give him some props. Fourth place in the D League, eighth place in for the belt. You know, it's a
Tough
little
go.
sad. That was a
Tough go.
rough kind of raw deal. Um, but honestly, I mean, there's cash in the losers bracket, and me, you, and him are right there. It's going to be a little feisty. It's going to get crazy down the stretch. Now I've heard about Ramondre and Bijan Robinson's playoff schedule. Things are going to get pretty cool. We got Shimmy. You know, you got to give it up to Shimmy.
Hmm.
Dude is a grinder. He's in that House of Buckets redraft that I always talk about. He missed the playoffs, but he's a former belt holder, so we don't hold it against him. But really, he's first place in the D League and first place in Roasted. So he's having himself a season right there. Uh, Love to see it, love to hear it. And then you've got friend of the pod, AJ, fucking
Yeah.
AJ. Um, he got third in that House of Buckets, dude. He's grinding on that one. Fresh Duds, the Jersey League. He's in first place, looking strong. Roasted, he is 10th, dead last.
Mm.
And he squeaked in there. I lost and gave him that sixth position in the For the Belt League. So that's pretty cool, man. But yeah, For the Belt was a lot of fun this year. Props
Yeah.
to Lance and to Russell Mocap.
Hmm.
You guys are holding it down. And then we've got the pillars of the league with Davey and Tony and Clint, who just like Johnny come lately, smashing us all. So I don't know. It's been a really fun year. So and then
It has
obviously
been.
you're doing good. You're sneaking in the playoffs and fresh duds and hopefully in roasted as well.
Mm.
And then mine's all like first and second place. So you guys already
Yeah,
know about
whatever.
that because I've been creaming you all year. But I don't know. It's fun to kind of reflect on it before we get in the make or break season of the playoffs. So
Yeah. It's it's gonna be fun. I'm rooting for AJ and for the belt. Love to see a new belt winner. That would
of
be
course.
cool. RDR lives on through him, hopefully,
Amen.
and for the belt. So that'll be nice. Yeah, it's getting spicy. Hopefully I can manage to stay in and roasted. That is a league where my overall winning percentage is horrendously bad. So it's nice to be in the playoff hunt for once in that league. I think this is our fourth year doing it.
Yeah.
So that is, it's good. It feels good to
You've
be
been through
there.
some stuff in that league.
Yeah, I've loved my roster. I guess I should have kept Chase. That's one that'll haunt me, but
Yeah.
unless Richardson turns it around. But yeah, I'm excited, man. We're getting into the crucible for sure, and I'm excited to kind of watch this all play out. Our episode next week might come out a little later than normal. I'm gonna be going to Florida for a bit.
Yeehaw.
So if you're waiting on the episode and don't know where it is, it will be coming out at some point. But just have some patience with me. I appreciate it. But until then, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we'll see you next time.
Hell yeah. Have a good night, everybody. Good life.
I took a lease out on your heart.